Ambassador Zethkar adjusted his breathing apparatus as he entered the Grand Council chamber of the Galactic Federation. The massive dome stretched above him, its walls lined with viewing platforms for representatives from over 300 worlds. Today's emergency session had been called to address what many considered the most disturbing discovery in the Federation's 2,000-year history. The humans have been lying. Zethakar's forearms trembled slightly as he activated his translation device. As the lead investigator for the Compliance Bureau, he had spent the last 6 months uncovering evidence that would shake the very foundations of galactic civilization. The small blue world called Earth, which had joined the Federation only 50 years ago, had been presenting a carefully crafted facade of weakness and primitiveness. The truth was far more terrifying. Distinguished members of the Council, Zethkar began, his voice echoing through the chamber's advanced acoustic system. What I am about to reveal will challenge everything we believe about our newest member species. High Counselor Vexthara, a towering crystalline being from the Andorian cluster, pulsed with skeptical purple light. Ambassador Zethkar, the humans have been exemplary members. Their agricultural contributions alone have solved food shortages on 17 worlds. What possible deception could go? They have been hiding their true capabilities, Zethkar interrupted, a breach of protocol that sent shocked ripples through the assembly. The humans we know as peaceful farmers and artists are not the real humans. They are what their species calls the nice version. The chamber erupted in confused chatter. Species-specific translation devices worked overtime as representatives demanded clarification in languages ranging from harmonic crystalline tones to subsonic whale songs. Zethkar activated the central holographic display. Images began to materialize showing Earth's surface, but not the pastoral scenes the Council was familiar with. Instead, massive industrial complexes stretched across continents. Ships that dwarfed Federation dreadnoughts hung in orbital shipyards. Weapons testing ranges scarred entire moons. This footage was obtained through our standard compliance monitoring, Zethkar explained. However, the humans had been using sophisticated holographic projectors and matter displacement technology to hide these installations. When our monitoring satellites passed overhead, they saw farms, cities, and nature preserves. The reality beneath these illusions tells a different story. Counselor Brickstall, whose gaseous form swirled anxiously in his containment suit, spoke through his translator. Surely you're mistaken. The humans barely have faster-than-light travel. Their most advanced vessels are small research ships and cargo haulers. Zethkar manipulated the display, showing what appeared to be a human cargo ship. With precise movements, he enhanced the image, revealing layers of sophisticated camouflage. Beneath the humble exterior lay a vessel bristling with weapons systems that exceeded anything in the Federation arsenal. This cargo hauler carries enough firepower to destroy a small moon, Zethkar said quietly. And according to our intelligence, there are over 10,000 such vessels in their merchant fleet. The implications began to sink in. If the humans had been deceiving them about their cargo ships, what else had they hidden? The deception goes deeper, Zethkar continued. The humans who joined our Federation 50 years ago represent only a fraction of their species. While Ambassador Sarah Chen and her diplomatic team have been charming us with their tales of art, literature, and agricultural innovation, the majority of humanity has been preparing for something we cannot yet comprehend. High Counselor Vexthara's crystal form flickered between colors, indicating extreme agitation. What are you suggesting, Ambassador? That they plan to attack the Federation? I don't know what they're planning, Zethkar admitted. But consider this. Every species that has joined the Federation has done so after being contacted by our exploration fleets. The humans are the only species that contacted us first. They sought us out. They applied for membership, and they did so with a perfectly crafted presentation of exactly what they thought we wanted to see. The chamber fell silent as the weight of this revelation settled over the assembled representatives. For 2 millennia, the Galactic Federation had been the dominant force in their region of space. They had encountered aggressive species before, but those conflicts had been straightforward. The enemy had revealed themselves through conquest or territorial expansion. The humans had done the opposite. They had embedded themselves within the Federation structure, contributed to its prosperity, and gained access to its most sensitive information and technology, all while concealing their true nature and capabilities. Counselor Yithmaran, an aquatic being whose tank suit bubbled with nervous energy, raised a tentacle.
What do we know about these real humans? How different are they from our human members? Zethkar pulled up personnel files for the human diplomatic mission.
Friendly faces smiled from identification photos. Ambassador Chen, with her warm brown eyes and encouraging smile, had personally negotiated trade agreements that had brought prosperity to dozens of worlds. Commander Davis had led joint scientific expeditions that had resulted in breakthrough discoveries in quantum mechanics and biotechnology. Dr. Treese Martinez had developed medical treatments that had saved millions of lives across the galaxy. Our human members appear to be genuine in their personalities and intentions, Zethkar said carefully. However, intercepted communications suggest they are part of what humans call First Contact Protocol Delta. This protocol involves selecting individuals who genuinely embody the traits their species wishes to project, then training them extensively in what they call diplomatic presentation of human civilization.
You mean they're actors? Brixtel asked, his gaseous form roiling with indignation.
Not exactly. Our psychological evaluations confirm that these humans truly believe in peace, cooperation, and scientific advancement. They are not pretending to be nice people. They are nice people, but they have been carefully selected and educated to represent only one aspect of human civilization. Zethkar activated another set of holographic displays. These showed intercepted human military communications, technical specifications for weapons systems that violated multiple Federation treaties, and strategic planning documents that demonstrated a level of military sophistication that rivaled the most advanced species in known space. The humans maintain what they call a diplomatic corps that interfaces with alien species, Zethkar explained. This corps is drawn from individuals who score highest on tests for empathy, cooperation, and peaceful problem-solving. Meanwhile, their military, industrial, and political leadership operates under completely different parameters. Counselor Vexthara's crystal form had settled into a deep red glow, indicating serious concern. Have we verified that these military capabilities are real? Could this be another layer of deception? We have confirmed multiple nuclear weapons tests on uninhabited worlds in their system. Zethkar replied. We have observed the construction of what appear to be planet-killing devices. We have intercepted communications discussing something called Protocol 7 in relation to xenocide scenarios. Most disturbing of all, we have discovered evidence of extensive intelligence gathering on every species in the Federation. The chamber buzzed with alarmed discussions. Representatives who had welcomed human agricultural experts and cultural exchanges now realized they might have been hosting intelligence operatives. Trade agreements that had seemed beneficial might have been cover for technology transfer and strategic positioning. What is their endgame? High Counselor Vexthara asked. If they have these capabilities, why maintain the charade? Why not simply conquer us directly? This was the question that had kept Zethkar awake for weeks. His investigation had revealed the extent of human deception, but their ultimate intentions remained unclear. The intercepted communications were heavily coded and often referenced concepts that seemed to have no direct translation into any known language. Based on our analysis of their strategic documents, we believe the humans are engaged in what they call long-term civilization management, Zethkar said slowly. They appear to view the Federation not as a conquest target, but as a project.
A project? Counselor Yithmaran's tank bubbled violently.
We are not some experiment. I'm afraid it's worse than that, Zethkar continued. The evidence suggests that humans have been observing galactic civilizations for much longer than we initially believed. Some intercepted references indicate they may have been aware of the Federation's existence for centuries before making contact. He activated a final set of displays showing deep space monitoring stations, disguised observation posts, and what appeared to be human vessels using advanced stealth technology to monitor Federation activities without detection. They have been watching us, learning our strengths, weaknesses, political structures, and technological capabilities. The human diplomatic mission was not their first contact with us. It was the culmination of centuries of intelligence gathering. The implications were staggering. Every major decision the Federation had made in recent decades might have been influenced by human manipulation. Every technological advancement might have been guided or subtly encouraged. Every political development might have been the result of carefully orchestrated human interference. The question now, Zethkar said, looking around the chamber at the shocked faces of representatives from across the galaxy, is what we do with this knowledge. High Counselor Vextara's crystal form pulsed with rapid color changes, indicating intense calculation. We must confront them directly. Demand answers. If they have been deceiving us, they must be held accountable. And if they refuse to answer, Brixtall asked, if they decide that their deception has been discovered and there's no longer any need to maintain friendly relations? The chamber fell silent. No one wanted to voice the obvious conclusion. If the humans had been hiding military capabilities that exceeded Federation technology, a direct confrontation might not end well for the Federation. We need more information, Counselor Yithmarin finally said. We need to understand what these humans really want and what they're capable of before we take any action. Zethkar nodded gravely. I have teams working on deeper intelligence gathering. But we must proceed carefully. If the humans become aware that we've discovered their deception, they might accelerate whatever timeline they're working under. Or they might simply drop the pretense entirely, High Counselor Vextara added ominously. As the emergency session concluded, representatives filed out of the chamber with expressions of worry and confusion. Many had formed genuine friendships with the human delegates. Others had built their economies around human trade and technology. The revelation that their new allies might be something entirely different from what they appeared challenged everything they thought they knew about galactic politics. Zethkar remained in the chamber after the others had left, staring at the holographic displays that showed the hidden face of human civilization. Somewhere on the small blue world called Earth, decisions were being made that could determine the fate of hundreds of species across thousands of worlds. The humans had been playing nice for 50 years. But as Zethkar had learned in his investigation, humans had many different ways of playing, and the Federation was about to discover that the nice version might have been the least frightening possibility. As he finally gathered his materials and prepared to leave, Zethkar couldn't shake the feeling that somewhere in space, human observers were watching him. Perhaps they already knew their secret was out. Perhaps this entire investigation had been anticipated and planned for. Perhaps they were still playing, and the Federation was still dancing to their tune. The thought sent chills through his exoskeleton as he made his way back to his quarters, carrying with him the knowledge that would forever change how the galaxy viewed the species that had introduced themselves, with smiles and offerings of friendship. 3 weeks after the emergency council session, Ambassador Sarah Chen sat in her modest office aboard the Federation diplomatic station, completely unaware that her species' carefully maintained secret was unraveling across the galaxy. She was reviewing agricultural reports from the Zephyrian colonies when her communication device chimed with an urgent priority message. The message came from Captain Marcus Webb, commander of the human survey vessel Peaceful Explorer. Sarah smiled at the name. It was so perfectly representative of how humanity wanted to be seen. But as she read the encrypted content, her expression grew serious. Sarah, we've got a problem. Federation surveillance has discovered the masking arrays on Luna Base. Recommend immediate activation of Protocol 7 Alpha. The charade may be compromised. Sarah's hands trembled slightly as she decoded the rest of the message. For 50 years, humanity had maintained its greatest deception in galactic history. They had convinced an entire interstellar civilization that Earth was populated by peaceful farmers and artists, when the reality was far more complex. She activated her secure communication channel and spoke quietly into the transmitter. This is Ambassador Chen to Seoul Command. Request immediate conference with the director. Priority classification, Omega. Within minutes, her office's holographic projector activated, revealing the familiar figure of Director James Harrison. Even through the encrypted transmission, Sarah could see the concern in his weathered features. Behind him, the massive command center of Sol Central buzzed with activity that would have shocked any Federation observer. Sarah, how bad is it? Harrison asked without preamble. Captain Webb reports they found the Luna installations. If they've seen through our holographic camouflage there, they've probably discovered much more. Sarah pulled up the surveillance reports she'd been monitoring. Federation intelligence teams have been unusually active, Ambassador Zethkar requested access to historical records that we've never allowed anyone to see. Director Harrison's expression darkened. Zethkar is their best investigator. If he's involved, they know something significant. He paused, consulting data streams flowing across screens behind him. Our intelligence suggests the Council held an emergency session 3 weeks ago. The topic was classified, but attendance included representatives from all major worlds. Sarah felt a chill. In 50 years of Federation membership, humanity had never been the subject of a classified emergency session. Sir, what are our options? That depends on how much they know and what they plan to do about it. Harrison activated additional displays showing Earth's true industrial capacity. Orbital shipyards stretched for thousands of kilometers. Planetary defense grids that could sterilize entire fleets hung in perfect formation around the world. Mining operations on asteroids throughout the system fed the largest military-industrial complex in known space. The Council has 3 basic options, Harrison continued. They can confront us diplomatically. They can attempt to expel us from the Federation, or they can try to take preemptive action against what they perceive as a threat. Sarah had been trained for this possibility since childhood. Every human involved in Federation contact had been prepared for the day their deception might be discovered, but the theoretical scenario felt very different when it became reality. What about option 4? She asked quietly. Harrison's expression became grim. Option 4 was the possibility that had kept human strategic planners awake for decades. The chance that their deception had been so complete, their integration so successful, that revelation of their true nature would trigger a galaxy-wide panic. Our sociological models suggest a 73% chance of immediate military response if they believe we pose an existential threat, Harrison replied. The Federation has never encountered a species that systematically deceived them for decades. Their response protocols assume either immediate hostility or genuine peaceful intent. Sarah turned to look out the window of her office at the Federation station bustling with activity. Dozens of species worked together in the common areas, many of them friends she had made over the years. The thought that this peaceful cooperation might be about to collapse made her feel sick. Sir, I need to ask the difficult question. Are we the bad guys in this scenario? Harrison was quiet for a long moment. Sarah, you know our history. You know why we made the choices we made. Sarah did know. Every human in the diplomatic corps had studied the classified archives extensively. Earth's first contact with alien intelligence hadn't been with the Federation. It had been with the hegemony of Skarath, a militaristic empire that had arrived in Sol's system 200 years ago with demands for immediate surrender. The Skarath had expected to find another primitive species to add to their slave empire. Instead, they had encountered humanity at the peak of its technological development, fresh from centuries of warfare that had driven innovation at a terrifying pace. The Skarath invasion fleet had been destroyed so completely that no trace remained. But the encounter had taught humanity a crucial lesson. The galaxy was full of species with advanced technology and hostile intentions. Earth had spent the next century and a half building defenses, developing weapons, and preparing for the next invasion. When Federation exploration ships finally arrived in Sol's system, humanity was ready. But instead of repeating the Skarath's mistake, humans chose a different approach. They had studied Federation culture from intercepted communications for decades. They knew what the Federation wanted to see. We gave them exactly the humanity they could accept, Sarah said, reciting from memory the words that had guided their deception. A species of artists, farmers, and scientists who wanted nothing more than to join their peaceful community. Harrison agreed. We hid our military might, our industrial capacity, and our true technological advancement. We presented ourselves as the kind of species the Federation was designed to welcome. But the deception had become more than just a survival strategy. Over 50 years, the humans in the diplomatic corps had genuinely grown to love the Federation and its ideals. They had formed real friendships, contributed to scientific advancement, and helped solve problems across hundreds of worlds. The irony, Sarah said softly, is that we became the species we were pretending to be. At least, those of us involved in Federation contact did. Which is why this works, Harrison replied. Every psychological evaluation, every behavioral assessment, every interaction has been genuine. You and the others aren't playing roles, you're being the best version of humanity. Sarah knew this was true. The human diplomatic corps was selected from individuals who genuinely valued peace, cooperation, and scientific advancement. They weren't psychopaths pretending to be nice. They were nice people who had been educated about the realities their species faced. But now the Council knows about the other version of humanity, Sarah said. The version that builds planet-killer weapons and maintains the largest military force in galactic history. The version that keeps the peace through strength, Harrison corrected. The version that makes sure species like the Skarath never threaten innocent civilizations again. Sarah's communication device chimed with another urgent message. This one came from Dr. Jerome Baer. Elena Martinez, the human medical expert stationed on the Rigelian research colony. Like Sarah, Elena was one of the genuine peace-loving scientists who represented humanity to the Federation. Unlike Sarah, Elena had no idea about Protocol 7 or the true extent of human military capabilities. Sarah, something strange is happening here. The Rigelians are asking very specific questions about human military history. They seem to think we're hiding something important. I told them humans barely had a military before joining the Federation, but they seemed skeptical. What should I tell them? Sarah closed her eyes, feeling the weight of the decision before her. Elena and dozens of other Human Federation representatives were genuine in their peaceful nature. They had been selected specifically because they embodied the values humanity wanted to project, but they had also been kept ignorant of their species' true capabilities to ensure their reactions remained authentic. Sarah? Harrison's voice brought her back to the moment. What's your assessment of the situation? Elena doesn't know, Sarah said quietly. Most of our people don't know. If the Federation confronts them, they'll genuinely believe humanity is exactly what we've presented ourselves to be. This had been part of the strategy from the beginning. The majority of humans involved in Federation contact were selected from the portion of Earth's population that truly embraced peaceful ideals. They weren't actors. They were real examples of human potential for cooperation and scientific advancement. But they represented only a fraction of humanity. Behind their genuine goodwill lay a species that had weaponized entire solar systems and built fleets capable of sterilizing galaxies. A species that had learned the hard way that the universe was often hostile to the weak. Sir, I need to know, Sarah said. What's the real scope of our capabilities? How different are we from what the Federation believes? Harrison activated additional displays that showed the true scale of human civilization. The numbers were staggering. Earth alone maintained orbital installations that dwarfed the entire Federation fleet. The Sol system contained more military hardware than most species built in millennia. And beyond Sol, human colonies stretched across hundreds of systems, each contributing to a war machine designed to protect against threats the Federation couldn't imagine. Conservative estimates suggest human military capability exceeds the combined strength of the Federation by a factor of approximately 50 to 1. Harrison said matter-of-factly. Our industrial capacity is roughly 300 times larger than Federation assessments suggest. Our technological advancement in weapons systems, defensive technology, and strategic warfare is approximately 2 centuries ahead of known Federation capabilities. Sarah stared at the displays in shock. She had known humanity was hiding significant capabilities, but the true scope was beyond anything she had imagined. How? She whispered. We've been at war for 2,000 years, Harrison replied. Not with other species, with the universe itself. Every generation has known that survival required constant advancement, constant preparation, constant vigilance. We've spent 2 millennia asking one question. How do we protect ourselves from anything the galaxy might send against us? And the answer? We become stronger than anything the galaxy can send. Sarah's mind reeled as she processed the implications. The Federation thought humanity was a species of artists and farmers with limited technology and peaceful intentions. The reality was that humans were possibly the most militarily advanced species in galactic history, with industrial capabilities that could transform entire star systems and weapons that could crack planets. But we've been good Federation members, she protested. We've helped solve problems, shared technology, contributed to peace and prosperity across hundreds of worlds. Yes, Harrison agreed, because that's who we choose to be when we have the luxury of choice. When we're strong enough to protect ourselves, we can afford to be generous. When we're secure enough to ensure our survival, we can focus on helping others. The communication device chimed again. This time it was a priority message from Federation headquarters. Sarah's clearance allowed her to access it, and what she read made her blood run cold. Ambassador Chen, you are requested to appear before the High Council for questioning regarding discrepancies in human technological assessments. This hearing is mandatory and will be conducted under truth verification protocols. Please report to Council Chambers at 0800 tomorrow. Sarah looked up at Director Harrison's image. They know, sir. They're calling me in for questioning under truth verification. Harrison's expression became grim. Truth verification protocols in Federation courts were nearly impossible to defeat. They used a combination of technological scanning and psychic evaluation that could detect even the most sophisticated lies. Sarah, I'm authorizing you for Protocol 7 Alpha, Harrison said formally. You have full discretionary authority to handle this situation as you see fit. Protocol 7 Alpha was the highest level of authorization in human diplomatic operations. It meant Sarah could reveal any information, take any action, and make any decision she believed necessary to protect human interests. Sir, what if they demand we disarm? What if they try to force us to reduce our capabilities to match our presented profile? Harrison was quiet for a moment before responding. Then we'll have to explain to them why that's not an option, and we'll have to hope they understand that the strongest species in the galaxy chose to be their friends. As the communication ended, Sarah sat alone in her office, looking out at the Federation station where hundreds of species worked together in peaceful cooperation. Tomorrow she would walk into a room and potentially end 50 years of carefully maintained deception. The question was whether the truth would preserve the peace humanity had helped build, or destroy it forever. The Grand Council chamber had been reconfigured for a formal truth verification hearing. Ambassador Sarah Chen walked through the massive doors, her footsteps echoing in the cavernous space. Around her, representatives from across the galaxy watched with expressions ranging from curiosity to outright suspicion. She had spent the night reviewing protocols and preparing herself for what might be humanity's most important conversation. At the center of the chamber, a complex array of scanning devices and psychic amplifiers created an environment where deception was virtually impossible. Sarah had been through truth verification before, but those had been routine diplomatic procedures. This felt different. This felt like a trial. High Counselor Vexthara's crystalline form pulsed with authoritative blue light as she called the session to order. Ambassador Chen, you appear before this council to address serious discrepancies regarding the true nature and capabilities of your species. Do you understand the nature of these proceedings? I do, Sarah replied, settling into the verification seat. The scanning devices activated immediately, creating a field that would monitor every aspect of her physiological and mental state. Ambassador Zethkar will present the evidence that has prompted this inquiry, Vexthara announced. Zethkar rose from his position among the investigators, his forearms manipulating holographic controls with practiced efficiency. The chamber's central display activated, showing satellite imagery of Luna Base with its holographic camouflage deactivated. Ambassador Chen, our surveillance systems have discovered extensive military installations throughout your star system that were previously hidden from view. Zethkar began. Can you explain why these facilities were concealed from Federation monitoring? Sarah felt the truth verification field intensify around her. There was no point in lying. The system would detect any deception immediately, but Protocol 7 Alpha gave her the authority to reveal whatever information she deemed necessary. The installations were concealed because humanity believed that revealing their true defensive capabilities would cause alarm among Federation members. Sarah said carefully, defensive capabilities? Counselor Brickstall's gaseous form swirled with agitation. Our analysis suggests these installations possess offensive capabilities far exceeding anything in known space. The Sarah took a deep breath. This was the moment she had trained for her entire diplomatic career. Counselor Brickstall, humanity has always maintained that the best defense is the ability to overwhelm any potential aggressor before they can cause harm to innocent populations. The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. The truth verification field confirmed that Sarah was speaking honestly, but her words implied capabilities that challenged everything the Federation understood about human civilization. Ambassador, High Counselor Vexthara's crystal form flickered with rapid color changes. Are you stating that humanity has been deliberately misrepresenting your technological and military capabilities since joining the Federation? Yes, Sarah replied simply. Humanity has presented only those aspects of our civilization that we believed the Federation could accept and work with productively. Zethkar activated additional displays showing intercepted communications and military specifications. Our intelligence suggests that human military capabilities exceed Federation strength by orders of magnitude. Is this accurate? Sarah paused, knowing that her next words would change everything. Conservative estimates suggest human military capacity exceeds the combined Federation fleet by approximately 50-1. The chamber fell completely silent. Even the ambient sounds of the station's life support system seemed muted. Representatives stared at Sarah with expressions of shock, fear, and betrayal. 50-1? Counselor Yithmern's aquatic tank bubbled violently. You're claiming that humanity could defeat the entire Federation in military conflict? I'm stating that humanity has prepared for threats that the Federation has been fortunate enough to never encounter, Sarah replied. Our military preparations are not directed at Federation members, but at protecting against the kinds of enemies that have shaped our development for millennia. Vexthara's crystal form had stabilized into a deep red glow of extreme concern. Explain what you mean by enemies that have shaped your development. Sarah accessed her historical files, calling up records that had been classified at the highest levels of human government. 200 years before humanity made contact with the Federation, we were invaded by a species called the hegemony of Scarith. They demanded immediate surrender and the enslavement of our entire population. New holographic displays showed the archived footage of the Scarith invasion fleet entering Sol's system. The alien vessels were massive and clearly designed for conquest, but the Federation representatives gasped as they watched what happened next. Human defensive systems that had been hidden throughout the solar system activated simultaneously. The Scarith fleet, which had seemed overwhelmingly powerful, was destroyed within hours. Not a single enemy vessel escaped to carry word of their defeat back to their empire. The Skarath taught us a fundamental lesson, Sarah continued. The galaxy contains species that view others as resources to be exploited or obstacles to be eliminated. We decided we would never again be vulnerable to such threats. But why hide this from us? Brixtal demanded. The Federation stands against such aggressors. We would have welcomed a strong ally. Sarah's expression became sad, because our analysis of Federation culture suggested that you would view our defensive preparations as evidence of aggressive intent. Your society has developed in the absence of existential threats. You've had the luxury of building a civilization based on cooperation and mutual benefit. She activated displays showing human analysis of Federation member species. Every civilization in the Federation has developed along similar paths. You've encountered competition for resources, territorial disputes, and occasional conflicts, but none of you have faced enemies dedicated to your complete extermination. And you have? Zethkar asked. Multiple times, Sarah confirmed. The Skarath were not the only hostile species we've encountered. In the past 2 centuries, we've detected and neutralized 3 other potential threats to inhabited systems. We've done so without involving the Federation because we believed it was our responsibility to handle such matters quietly. The implications were staggering. While the Federation had been developing peaceful trade relationships and scientific cooperation, humanity had been fighting a shadow war against threats that other species never knew existed. Show them the Devourer incident, Director Harrison's voice said through Sarah's private communication channel. She had been authorized to include Sol Command in the hearing if necessary. Sarah activated her personal communication system. High Council, I request permission to include Director James Harrison of Sol Command in these proceedings. He can provide additional context for humanity's defensive preparations. After a brief consultation, permission was granted. Harrison's holographic image appeared beside Sarah, and she could see the shock on the council members' faces as they observed the massive command center behind him. Director Harrison, Vexthara addressed him formally. Explain these other threats Ambassador Chen mentioned. Harrison activated displays showing deep space monitoring data from 12 years ago. High Council, are you familiar with the civilization that once existed in the Kepler 442 system? Several council members indicated they were. Kepler 442 had been a thriving system with a spacefaring civilization until its entire population mysteriously vanished overnight. The Federation had investigated but found no explanation for the disappearance. The Kepler 442 civilization was consumed by a species we call the Devourers, Harrison explained. They are a hive-mind entity that converts entire civilizations into raw materials for their own reproduction. Our deep space monitoring detected them approaching Federation space 2 years after the Kepler incident. The chamber was riveted with attention as Harrison showed tracking data of massive organic ships moving through space, consuming everything in their path. The Federation never detected these entities because they exist in a quantum phase that your sensors cannot perceive, Harrison continued. Human technology developed specifically to deal with exotic threats allowed us to track and intercept them. You fought them? Counselor Yithmarin asked in a whisper. We destroyed them, Harrison replied matter-of-factly. 3 hive ships, each capable of consuming an entire star system. The operation required approximately 60% of our available fleet and the deployment of weapons that could sterilize planets. The Federation representatives were struggling to process this information. While they had been enjoying peaceful trade and scientific cooperation, humanity had been protecting them from threats they couldn't even detect. How many times has this happened? Zethkar asked. 7 major threats in the past 50 years, Sarah replied. The Federation is aware of none of them because we have handled each situation before it could affect Federation space. High Counselor Vexthara's crystal form had cycled through multiple colors before settling on a pale yellow that indicated deep thought. You've been protecting us. All this time, you've been acting as guardians for the Federation. We've been doing what we believed was necessary, Sarah corrected. The Federation represents something precious, a civilization based on cooperation and mutual respect. We wanted to preserve that without forcing you to confront the realities that shaped our development. But this deception, Brickstall protested. How can we trust you now that we know you've been lying for 50 years? Sarah felt the truth verification field intensify as the most crucial moment of the hearing arrived, because you can verify everything we've told you. You can examine our actions over 5 decades and see that despite having overwhelming military superiority, we chose to be farmers and artists and scientists. We chose to contribute to Federation prosperity rather than dominate it. Director Harrison added, the humans you know, Ambassador Chen, Dr. Nickett, Martinez, Commander Davis, and all the others. They represent genuine aspects of human civilization. They are not actors or spies. They are real people who embody the values humanity strives for when we have the security to make that choice. But you maintained this deception while gaining access to Federation technology, strategic information, and defensive positions, Zethkar pointed out. How do we know this isn't an elaborate conquest strategy? Sarah stood up, the truth verification field crackling around her as she prepared to make the most important statement of her career. Because if humanity wanted to conquer the Federation, we would have done so 50 years ago, she said clearly. We had the capability then, and our capabilities have only grown since. We chose friendship over conquest, cooperation over domination, and service over exploitation. The truth verification systems confirmed her honesty with harmonic tones that filled the chamber. Every year we maintained this deception was another year we chose to protect rather than destroy, to build rather than take, to serve rather than rule, Sarah continued. We hid our strength because we wanted to be worthy of the trust you gave us, not because we intended to betray it. High Counselor Vexthara's crystal form began pulsing with new colors, patterns the translator systems identified as indicating deep contemplation mixed with growing understanding. You became the species you wanted us to believe you were, she said slowly. We became the species we wanted to be when we could afford to make that choice, Sarah agreed. Strength gave us the luxury of kindness. Security allowed us to be generous. Power enabled us to serve. The chamber remained silent as the implications settled over the assembly. The Federation's greatest fear, that they had been infiltrated and deceived by a hostile species, had been replaced by a more complex reality. Humanity had indeed deceived them, but in order to protect both human and Federation interests. They had hidden their strength not to enable conquest, but to preserve the peaceful civilization they genuinely wanted to be part of. "What happens now?" Counselor Yithmarin asked quietly. Sarah looked around the chamber at the representatives who had become colleagues and friends over the years. "That depends on whether the Federation can accept humanity as we really are, rather than as we pretended to be." The question hung in the air as the hearing moved toward its conclusion. The truth was finally out, but its consequences remained to be determined. The council had been in closed session for 6 hours. Ambassador Sarah Chen waited in the adjacent chamber, monitoring communications from Seoul Command and trying to prepare herself for any possible outcome. The truth verification hearing had gone better than expected, but the Federation now faced an unprecedented decision. Through her secure communication link, Director Harrison provided updates on the broader situation developing across Federation space. Word of humanity's true capabilities was spreading despite attempts to maintain confidentiality. Several member species had requested emergency military assessments. Others were demanding immediate security guarantees. A few were quietly preparing for the possibility of military conflict. "Sarah, we're detecting increased activity around several Federation defense installations," Harrison reported. "Nothing hostile yet, but they're clearly taking precautions." Sarah understood their concern. Learning that a member species possessed military capabilities that exceeded the entire Federation by orders of magnitude would be terrifying for any government. The fact that humanity had hidden these capabilities for 50 years only made the revelation more unsettling. "Any sign they're considering military action?" she asked. "Our intelligence suggests the military option is being discussed. But cooler heads are pointing out the obvious problem with that approach," Harrison replied. "If they believe our capabilities are as advanced as we've indicated, attacking us would be suicide. This was the paradox humanity had hoped to avoid. Their strength was so overwhelming that any attempt to use force against them would be futile. But that same strength made other species fearful of their intentions." A chime indicated that the council session was ending. Sarah composed herself and prepared to face whatever decision they had reached. The chamber doors opened and High Counselor Vexthara emerged, her crystalline form pulsing with complex patterns that Sarah's translator indicated meant cautious optimism mixed with profound concern. "Ambassador Chen, the Council has reached a preliminary decision," Vexthara announced. "We would like to propose a new arrangement between humanity and the Federation." Sarah felt a mixture of relief and apprehension. A proposal was better than an ultimatum, but the specific terms would determine whether the peaceful relationship could continue. "I'm authorized to negotiate on behalf of humanity," Sarah replied. "What does the Council propose?" Vexthara activated the chamber's main display, showing a complex document that had clearly been drafted with considerable care. "The Council proposes the creation of a new category of Federation membership, Guardian Species Status." Sarah studied the proposal carefully. Guardian Species Status was an entirely new concept in Federation law, created specifically to address humanity's unique situation. Under this arrangement, Vexthara explained, humanity would maintain its current trade relationships, cultural exchanges, and scientific cooperation with the Federation. However, you would also assume formal responsibility for protecting Federation space from external threats that exceed our defensive capabilities. The proposal was elegant in its simplicity. Instead of trying to force humanity to reduce their military capacity or punish them for their deception, the Federation was offering to formalize the protective role humans had been playing in secret. In exchange, Vexthara continued, humanity would receive full access to Federation scientific databases, expanded trade privileges, and a permanent seat on the High Council with authority over defense-related decisions. Sarah felt her communication device vibrate with an incoming message from Seoul Command. Director Harrison's response was brief but enthusiastic. "Preliminary assessment. This could work. Recommend acceptance with modifications. The proposal is intriguing," Sarah said carefully, "but I need clarification on several points. What constitutes an external threat that exceeds Federation defensive capabilities?" Counselor Brixtall's gaseous form swirled forward. "Based on your presentation regarding the Devourer incident and other threats you've handled, we're referring to existential threats to inhabited systems, hostile species that seek complete extermination or consumption of other civilizations. And what oversight would the Federation have over human military operations? Zethkar activated additional displays showing proposed monitoring protocols. Humanity would provide regular reports on potential threats and proposed responses. However, given your superior capabilities in detecting and analyzing such threats, we would not attempt to micromanage your operations. Sarah could see the wisdom in this approach. The Federation was acknowledging that their lack of experience with existential threats made them poor judges of appropriate responses. At the same time, they were requiring transparency to ensure that human military actions aligned with Federation interests. What about our deception over the past 50 years? Sarah asked. Are there any consequences for that? High Counselor Vexthara's crystal form pulsed with what Sarah's translator identified as wry amusement. Ambassador, our analysis suggests that humanity's deception probably saved the Federation from multiple catastrophes. If we had known about your true capabilities from the beginning, we might have become complacent about our own defenses. If we had known about the threats you were handling, we might have panicked and made poor decisions. The logic was sound, but Sarah sensed there were deeper concerns that hadn't been addressed yet. What about the other member species? She asked. How do they feel about this proposal? The question touched on the most difficult aspect of the entire situation. While the High Council could make policy decisions, they still needed to maintain the support of hundreds of member species across the galaxy. There is concern, Zethkar admitted. Many species feel betrayed by the deception. Others are frightened by the implications of humanity's true capabilities. A few are worried about what other secrets might be hidden among Federation members. Sarah nodded. These were all reasonable concerns that would need to be addressed carefully. However, Vexthara added, there is also significant appreciation for what humanity has accomplished. Our analysis of the threats you've neutralized suggests that several member worlds might not exist today if you hadn't intervened. A new voice joined the conversation as Counselor Yithmarin's tank suit approached. Ambassador Chen, there is one question that many species have raised, and I think it's important to address it directly. What question is that? What assurances can you provide that humanity will not use these capabilities against Federation members in the future? It was the fundamental question that lay beneath all the others. Trust, once broken by deception, was difficult to rebuild even when that deception had been motivated by protective instincts. Sarah stood and activated her personal communication system. Director Harrison, with your permission, I'd like to make a proposal that goes beyond what we've discussed. Harrison's holographic image appeared, along with several other figures that Sarah recognized as senior leadership from Sol Command. Go ahead, Ambassador. I propose that humanity provide the Federation with complete technical specifications for our defensive systems and allow Federation observers to monitor our major military installations, Sarah announced. The proposal sent shocked murmurs through the chamber. Even Harrison looked surprised by the suggestion. Sarah, that's an extraordinary level of transparency, Harrison said carefully. Yes, sir, it is. But I believe it's necessary to rebuild trust. Sarah turned to address the Council directly. Humanity's strength has been our secret for 50 years. If we're going to abandon that secrecy, we should abandon it completely. Counselor Vexthara's crystal form flickered through several colors before settling on deep blue. You're proposing to share military technology that could theoretically allow other species to match your capabilities? But more importantly, I'm proposing to demonstrate that humanity has no intention of using our capabilities against Federation members. If we were planning conquest or domination, we wouldn't give you the tools to defend against us. Director Harrison consulted with his advisors before responding. Ambassador, Sol Command approves this proposal with one modification. We will share defensive technologies and monitoring access, but offensive weapon specifications will remain classified. Understood, sir. Counselor Brixtall's gaseous form was swirling with what his translator indicated was excitement. This level of technological sharing could advance Federation defensive capabilities by centuries. That's the idea, Sarah replied. If humanity is going to serve as guardians for Federation space, then Federation worlds should have the best possible defenses we can provide. Zethkar was studying the proposal with intense interest. This arrangement would create an unprecedented level of military cooperation between species. It would also create unprecedented security, Sarah pointed out. Federation worlds would be protected by both human guardian fleets and their own enhanced defensive systems. The conversation was interrupted by an urgent communication from Federation Deep Space Monitoring. Counselor Vexthara received the message and immediately activated the chamber's main display. "We're receiving reports of unidentified contacts approaching Federation space from the Galactic Rim," she announced. "Multiple large objects moving at significant velocity toward inhabited systems." Sarah felt her blood run cold. This was exactly the kind of threat that had driven human military development for centuries. "Director Harrison, are you seeing this?" she asked. Harrison's expression was grim as he consulted his own deep space monitoring networks. "Confirmed, Sarah. We have 7 objects, each approximately the size of a small moon, approaching at near-light speed. They're not responding to communications, and they're not showing up on Federation sensors. Can you identify them?" Vexthara asked urgently. "Negative. This is a new contact type. But based on their approach vector and behavior patterns, they appear to be hostile." The chamber erupted in urgent discussions as representatives realized they were facing exactly the kind of existential threat that humanity had been preparing for. Sarah felt a grim satisfaction that the timing would demonstrate the value of human protective capabilities, but she was also deeply concerned about the nature of this new threat. "High Council," Sarah said, raising her voice to cut through the chaos, "I request immediate authorization to implement Guardian Species protocols. Protocols that don't yet exist?" Zethkar pointed out. "Protocols that we're about to create," Sarah replied. "Humanity can intercept these threats before they reach inhabited systems, but I need Federation authorization to act." High Counselor Vexthara's crystal form pulsed rapidly through multiple colors before settling on authoritative gold. "By emergency powers vested in this council, I hereby authorize humanity to act as guardian species for the Federation, effective immediately." That's his counselor turned to Harrison's image. "Director, you're authorized to deploy guardian fleets. Rules of engagement are defensive priority. Protect Federation worlds at all costs." Guardian Fleet 7 is already en route. Estimated intercept in 42 hours. As the chamber buzzed with activity coordinating the Federation's first major external threat response, Sarah realized that humanity's 50-year deception had just ended in the most dramatic way possible. They were no longer pretending to be peaceful farmers and artists. They were about to demonstrate exactly what they had become during centuries of preparing for the worst the galaxy could offer. "Ambassador Chen," Vexthara said quietly, "I hope your people are as capable as you've claimed." Sarah watched the tactical displays showing human guardian fleets moving to intercept the unknown threats. Massive ships that dwarfed anything in the Federation arsenal moved with precision and purpose toward a confrontation that would determine the fate of hundreds of worlds. "High Counselor, you're about to find out that we've been playing nice for 50 years. But when it comes to protecting our friends, humanity doesn't play nice anymore." As the first Guardian fleet engaged the unidentified threats at the edge of Federation space, the galaxy watched humanity reveal its true nature, not through conquest or domination, but through the protection of those who had become their chosen family among the stars. The deception was over. The guardianship had begun. And across hundreds of worlds, species that had feared humanity's hidden strength began to understand that sometimes the most terrifying power was the kind that chose to serve rather than rule.